Hello friends, it's Mindy with the Pink Llama, and today we are going to make a cute Americana Angel. This angel is hand cut, designed by myself. Here we're just painting our wings in the Navy by Dixie Belle. And now we are going to tape off the head and, what I'm doing is I kind of lined it up so that I'm painting where the wings will be fit directly behind. This is her shirt, if you will. And now I'll take the tape and move it to the edge of where I just painted that in the navy so I can line up my little stripes I'm going to make. So I just take my tape and try to get it as straight as I can, and then I take a shorter piece of tape just so I get even spacing. And now we're going in with Buttercream by Dixie Belle, and I'm going in with a light coat so that it doesn't bleed through my tape. And then I'll dry it well and go in with one more light coat. I don't do very heavy coats because I am going to distress. And now a quick tip here is if you take your piece of tape off, say I use the same tape I recycle, and I just move it over to the tape next to it, right to the edge. And if you do that, you'll almost always get perfect coverage of that stripe next to it. So my white was perfectly covered by my tape. Now we're going in with Rustic Red by Dixie Belle. And this only takes one coat because it's so pigmented, but I do a light coat as well. And now we are going in with Peach by Apple Barrel to paint her little face. And this does take a couple coats. And then we do distress our blue. We'll do that on the wings and on the shirt because we're going to put some white stars on it. And I find that it looks so much better if you distress the blue before you do the stripes, because then you don't have to distress your stars as much. Same thing with her little shirt. We're distressing there. And I always wipe off after I sand. I just take a little wet wipe and wipe it off. So here I have a stencil I made, and I just do it on permanent vinyl. This vinyl works wonders. It works so well when you're stenciling. You get very little bleeding. And I just use a sponge dauber and go in and lightly daub those stars. I don't do the stars in the center where it's going to be hidden when it's attached to her. So a quick tip here is you want to load up your little sponge dauber, and then you want to offload until it looks like there's almost no paint on there. And then you lightly go over your stars, do one quick coat, dry it, and then go in for more coats after that until you have your desired look. Same thing on the shirt. Now, when you are drying over this vinyl stencil, you want to make sure your heat tool is at the cool setting, otherwise you will melt your vinyl. And I don't worry about my stars being perfect because they are going to be lightly distressed anyway. Now it's peel and reveal time. So I'm going in and I'm sanding my white first. I always sand my lightest color first, just so I don't get as much bleeding transfer of the darker color next to it. So I am heavily distressing in between the red and the white, and I am getting a little bit of transfer of the red, but you can go in with a wet rag or a wet wipe and wipe that back. And I distress my red pretty heavily as well. And then I always go back and wipe it down with a wet wipe or a wet rag. We'll distress our stars and wipe it down as well. You just get a more vibrant, it brings back the color of your paint when you wipe it down. And we're distressing the stars on the wings as well. And some stars I would distress pretty heavy, and others I barely distressed at all. I just like that look. And then we're just using a blush for her little cheeks. This is just a Dollar Tree blush, no particular color, you can leave this step out. Now we're going in with Dixie Belle Best Dang Wax in the color dark brown, and we are going to wax her up. I usually start with my edges first because I do wax my edges a little bit heavier than the rest, but I am going in between the red and the white and waxing those a little bit darker as well. And then I do go over the entire thing with a light coat of wax, and I always wipe it back. And then I'll go back in and darken up where I want. Now we have a rusty piece of wire that I looped around. I made a circle about 1.5 inches, 2 inches round, and I looped it around 4 times. And then I twisted it together at one end, so it secured those wires together. And then I had some rusty stars that I added some rusty floral wire to, and I am just twisting those stars on to make a little halo. Now I'm making some little marks so we can drill some holes, and these holes are going to be for some carpet tacks that kind of look like hair. I always put one dead center in the very top of the head, and then I just kind of space them around from there. They don't have to be perfectly spaced or straight across from each other. It looks cuter when it's a little wonky. So I take my carpet tacks and I dip them in, type on quick and thick, and then I put them in the hole and hammer them in until they're in at the desired height that I want. And just use your judgment on what you think looks best. So that carpet tack at the very top of her head, I drill a little hole right behind that carpet tack, and that's where we're going to glue her halo in. This way you don't see a hole, and it looks like the halo's just kind of floating off her head. And now we're going to make a cute little neutral bow with some tobacco cloth that has been coffee stained, and just a very neutral fabric that has Americana writing on it. You can do any kind of bow you want. And then we have a little barn star I decided to use some gold rub and buff on, and then we're going to rub it on, buff it off, and then we're going to wax it up pretty good, especially around the edges, but I do wax the entire thing. And that's going to go on her little dress. And I use the Type on Quick and Thick for this whole project. It glues in her halo, the star, the nails, the bow, everything. I just find that it has the best hold. She's looking so cute. Now she comes with a little base, and this base is just to help hold her up due to the weight of her wings. She needs just a little bit of extra stabilization at the bottom. And I just paint that in the navy by Dixie Belle. And I just dress it up real good so that it's very cohesive with the rest of her look. And that'll get waxed up as well. And we'll glue it on. And again, I use the Type on Quick and Thick to glue her on. And she turned out absolutely adorable. Thank y'all so much for watching. I appreciate it. Kits are available at thepinkllamatx.com, or you can message me on Facebook at thepinkllamatx.